Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started, guys. Thank you all for coming and taking some time with us today. I am very excited about our guest today. So her name is Hannah Delaney. She is a criminal justice major at Valdosta State University. She's a sophomore. She is also a cadet in the AFROTC. So I'm really excited to talk with you, Hannah. Thank you so much for taking some time with us today and telling us your story.
Yeah. Do you want me to just get into it
Yeah,
or?
go for it.
Okay.
Everyone, this is Hannah.
Hello. So basically how my life has gone, I grew up in Okinawa, Japan on Kidina Air Base, and I lived there from when I was 7 till when I was 17 and a half. And I did a lot of stuff, especially in high school. Like I was in show choir. I did a pre-college program at Carnegie Mellon University where I programmed a video game as well as produced and sound designed an augmented reality video game. I also did video communications and filmed a short film in Tokyo where I received a gold award for production manager. So I did a lot of different stuff because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And for a lot of my life, the military was like not on my mind at all because I grew up in it and I was just like, I kind of want to do something different. Like I want to do something different than my dad did or whatever. And so I I graduated high school a semester early to move so that I can move to Georgia. And so we moved to Georgia and I committed to a school in DC, George Mason University, and I went up there for my fall semester of my freshman year. And when I did that, I was a criminal criminology major, which is different than criminal justice because it's more about the psychology of criminals than the actual law or legal procedures of criminal justice. And so I went to that school. I joined a sorority. I lived up there for a while, but I realized that it wasn't what I wanted my college life to be like. I didn't really want to be in a sorority, and I didn't really like where I was because it was expensive and I like just genuinely couldn't see myself there for the next 3.5 years. So I decided to transfer down back to Georgia. So I transferred to Middle Georgia State University right up in Macon. Um, it was very last minute, so they accepted me very quickly. I literally decided to transfer there, I think 5 days before the end of my first semester. And so I was there for my second semester where I decided to instead be a business major. And that was interesting. I took a macroeconomics class and it wasn't my favorite thing. So I knew like halfway through that semester that business was not what I wanted to do. And then one day I went to dinner with my mom and some of her friends, and one of her friends is a officer on Robins and she's in the reserves. And she talked to me about joining the military, and I was not sure, and my dad had always told me if I decided to join the military, it would be I'd have to go in as an officer. He wouldn't let me go in enlisted. So I decided to look into it, and I looked into a few schools because there are a few schools in Georgia that offer the AFROTC program, and I also looked into OTS and COT, which are basically after you go to college, you apply for these programs and you go through a training like environment to enter the military world as an officer. And I decided that AF ROTC was what I wanted to do because I knew that not only would I have the opportunity to meet a lot of people, but I would have a more understanding of what it meant to be in the military and have more leadership experience because I would be there for 3 years. So I finally, after calling and talking to a few colleges, I decided on Valdosta State University, which is where am now, and I absolutely love it. Um, and so this year has definitely been one of the more rougher years for me. I So I joined as a 250, which is a rigorous thing, and I was called into one of the cadre's offices and was told that basically there was a very high chance that I wouldn't make it past this year because for your sophomore year in ROTC, you have to pass certain requirements, whether it be your physical fitness test or your name gets and your profile gets sent up to Big Air Force to decide if they want you as an officer, and you can be cut from the program if they decide they don't want you. And a lot of 250s, which is what I'm considered, get cut because their cadre don't know them that well because they came in later than the 100s and they're not as prepared as the people who came in their freshman year. So whether it be me not wanting to give up or just me being very stubborn, I decided to continue and go through with being a 250. And I joined everything. I did all the volunteer events. I joined Color Guard. I did this program called Arnold Air Society. I'm not really allowed to get too much into it because I did sign a non-disclosure agreement for this program. It's basically a secret society for AFRTC cadets. And during that process, about 4 weeks into it, I dislocated my knee. And I had yet to have passed a physical fitness test because my official one didn't come up until the week after I had dislocated my knee. And I just remember feeling really, really angry and upset because I was like, I've been working so hard. I had like shedded a lot of weight. I could do more push-ups than I think I could ever. I could run faster than I ever could previously. And I got decent at marching. I'm not the best, but I was getting really good at all the ROTC stuff. And now this was a hindrance for me. And I continued to go to every PT in the morning. I would wake up at 5 in the morning to put it on my uniform while I had this huge brace that immobilized my leg and would hobble on crutches, or like when I took off the crutches, just hobble to wherever I needed to go. And I would cheer on my friends and my classmates. And I kept in contact with my cadre, and they finally decided, they had decided that they would waive me from passing it my first semester and let me take it my second semester. And so I finally got cleared, and it was a very long process because I was communicating with doctors up in Macon, as well as living in Valdosta and going to physical therapy in Valdosta. And so they were trying to communicate, and it always took forever for the doctors to communicate. So it took a lot longer than it should have for me to get cleared. But then even once I was cleared and I was done with physical therapy, there was a lot of muscle deterioration in my leg that I had to build back up. So over break, I worked really hard, and my leg looked really weird. It was like super skinny and not right at all. And so I worked really hard on building that muscle back up. I ran, I did biking, a lot of biking, and I came back into the next semester, and I was slower than all my classmates, but I was putting in the most effort that I could, and I managed to do a lot at the beginning of this semester, and I ended up passing my fitness assessment with a 89. I was one sit-up away from passing with a 90, which I was a little bit upset about because I thought that the max to max out for sit-ups was one less than it was. So I only did it to the max instead of going and doing that. And the next day after my fitness assessment, they sent up our PSP packages, which is what they send to Big Air Force to have them decide if they want to send us to training so that we continue on to become an officer. And I was really stressed out because I knew that I'd worked very hard, but I didn't know what had been seen by my superiors. And so we had a really long waiting period. And then I remember getting the email saying that the commander wanted to have a conversation with our class, and it separated into two phone calls, a 10:30 and an 11:15. I was in the 11:15 call, with 19 other cadets, and we all made it. We all got EAs. And then the others, they didn't, but it was a very big class that got cut down. We had 47 originally, and now we're at 20. And the crazy part was, like, the cadre that told me, he isn't with our detachment anymore. He went back into active duty wherever he was before. But when he told me that most people won't make it, I was the only one who had, and there's only one other 250 that has actually gotten to where I am, and he's going to commission this year. And so it was a really, like, big deal for me, and I was very excited. And then I got an email from our NCOs, and they're the non-commissioned officers, so they're enlisted, higher ranking enlisted. And they told me that I needed to come down so I could pick up my uniform for field training this summer. So I told them that I'd come back down the next day, which is a 2-hour drive, but I was very excited to get these uniforms, so I drove anyway. And me and one of the older cadets walked in because he's in charge of the uniform room, and we walk up the stairs, and the NCOs are talking to me, and they're asking me how everything's going, and they give me all my uniforms, and they asked me to dump out the bag just to make sure everything was in there that needed to be in there. And one of them started filming me, and I asked, like, why are you filming me? And they said it was for some insurance thing. And then my commander walks into the uniform room while I'm, like, marking down all the stuff that I have on a piece of paper, and he acts like he doesn't know I'm there, or he didn't know that I was coming. And me and him talk for a little bit, and he says, and this part I still get really shocked about that it happened, but he basically asked me if I was excited for field training, and I said yes, and that I know it was going to be different because of all this coronavirus stuff, but I'm very excited to go. And he said, well, you should be proud of yourself. We're proud of you. And you should even be more proud of yourself because now you're a scholarship cadet, which was a really weird thing for me because I had never expected. I didn't even know there was a scholarship being offered. And so basically I got a scholarship that pays for the rest of my schooling. And it was very crazy to me. It's still crazy to me. And then last Thursday, so a week before today, I raised my right hand and took the oath of enlistment. And so now I'm technically in the military. I am in the military. I'm in the inactive reserves, and I'm very, very happy. And I guess, like, that just shows that, like, no matter what you do and no matter what happens, you don't want to give up on yourself, even when something like dislocating your knee happens and you can't do anything about it. Because you can't do anything about it. The most you can do is make the most of your situation, and that's what I did. And now I'm here, and yeah.
That's amazing. I love your story, Hannah, and I just kind of want to go back to kind of after you got hurt, what really drove you to say, you know what, this is my situation, but I'm gonna make the best of it. Like, what did you kind of find deep down in you to do the work, still get up at 5 every morning, go to your workouts, even though you couldn't walk? Like, what was driving you during that time?
So I consider myself a very stubborn person, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But I remember at first it was just, I want to be there for my friends, because we do get, for my year, we get screamed at during PT and yelled at to get motivated. It's not to, like, hate on you. There's no hazing involved, but it's to motivate you and get you to do better. And I wanted to be there to be a voice of support. And then I had a meeting with my immediate cadre member that I typically report to because he's over my class. And he said that he's liked seeing me at the PTs, and he wants me to continue, mainly because he wants to be able to say to the people that don't show up to PT as often or take more absences, to basically be like, Delaney's coming and she can't even walk. So that definitely was a thing, but it was always because you're part of a team, so I wanted to support my team.
Definitely. And what kind of takeaways do you have for our class that's sitting in today for them? Because they are all juniors. Their next year they're going to be seniors and then go off to their post-secondary choices. So what do you kind of advice or takeaway do you have for them?
So do not be afraid to change your mind a lot of times. I earlier I talked about how I went to this pre-college program where I programmed and did sound design and stuff, and I had always, I also did robotics in high school, that was another thing, but I'd always wanted to go into some sort of STEM field. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer or a programmer, and I remember whenever I was there, I was so enthralled in doing all the programming and whatever that I didn't really take care of myself, and I realized that that wasn't for me and that I couldn't do that and still be a healthy person if I had pursued that, because I would just get very invested in it. And so I made the decision to be like, hey, maybe this isn't for me. There has to be something else out there for me. And so just constantly, if you change your opinion on what to do 30 times, people change their opinion on what to do when they're 30 years old and in a full-time job. Like, there's no pressure, and a degree is a degree. And as much as you like, yeah, you want to go for something that you'll enjoy in a field that you think you'll be in, you can use that degree and get a job and then go into something completely different because of your experiences and your skills that you get at those jobs. So it's not really necessarily about the degree you get in college. It's more about the skills that you possess and that you gain throughout your experiences. So don't be afraid of changing your mind, because I had a little bit of fear of that for a while. And then once I finally embraced the fact that I can make my own decisions and that I can change my mind 30 times and still be all right, that's how I got to where it was now, because I made a decision and I liked it and I followed through with it. So
awesome. Well, guys, we're going to open it up to questions. So if you will turn on your videos and your mics if you have any questions for Hannah. Hi, guys. Get everyone to pop up. Does anyone have a question or want to go first? See a couple of people.
So I have Valdosta down as one of my schools because I want to go in for aerospace engineering. I want to hopefully be a pilot and take up one of the pilot slots. What is like some way that you recommend starting in with the ROTC? Like,
okay, so definitely go and tour, because we have a really cool facility. I will be completely honest. We have sims for pilots. So we have VR that you put on and you pretend to be in a cockpit and you can fly planes. That's not necessarily what I want to do, but I have friends that are planning on getting there. You don't need to have a private pilot's license or prior pilot training. A lot of people have never touched a plane in their life. So you're like, that's fine. Honestly, if you sign up for the classes, if you go into Valdosta and you sign up for the classes, it's not like an application process. You immediately become a 100. And because I know like Georgia Tech, they have an application process, I believe.
they have a crosstown program that they use.
Yeah. And so VSU is much more lenient, but they're also very good. We're one of the top rated universities when we go to field training, because we do a whole year of field training preparation instead of the one semester most colleges do. And so for a pilot, like, just, have decent grades. Whenever you're a sophomore going to take your AFOTT, which is like a standardized test that you take to become an officer, get high pilot scores, study your pilot sections. Yeah, that's kind of, because a lot of like and then it's like up to chance at that point, but women pilots are definitely needed. So you have a good chance there.
I will actually already have my pilot certificate, not this summer because of COVID, but next summer I got the Chief of Staff Flight Academy, so I'll be going to that. Hopefully that step ahead will help promote me.
Yeah, especially because you already have the knowledge of it. So whenever you have to go take those tests, because after you get a rated position or slot, you take like your TBAS and all that stuff, and that would be like when you become more competitive too. So definitely do all your studying and everything, and I'm sure you'll do fine.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you, Jade. Do you guys, anyone else have any other questions? Jade, do you have any others you can think of? So I have one from Miss Raina. How did you choose your college? So what
Okay.
choices wanted to do?
So originally, I've chosen a few colleges. So I have a few criteria that I looked at. And so when you're touring colleges, you definitely take in mind, like, do you want a huge college? Like, that's one of the first ones that they tell you, like, do you want to not be a number, but like not have like a small college feel? Do you want a small college where you kind of know everyone? Like, you have to just decide those things. But one of the main things, like when I originally chose George Mason for my first semester, I chose it because it's right outside of DC, and I wanted to be in the FBI for a little while. And I thought that because I would be like right there, I'd get better internship opportunities, and that school offered better internship opportunities than I saw in a lot of other colleges. But then when I finally decided on Valdosta, it was because they had the program I wanted, they had the size that I wanted, and they were close enough to home where I didn't feel like my parents could come all the time, but I could also go and see them whenever I needed to, because it's about 2 hours away. So it's not like an every weekend trip, but it is like a maybe once a month kind of trip. So that's kind of the reason. That's why I chose it.
Awesome.
Hope that answered your question.
Yes. Okay, good. Anyone else have any questions? I know some of you still have your videos off, but anyone have something for Hannah?
This is kind of a in-depth military kid question because I've been in the Air Force all my life. I lived in Japan too. What would you want to do in the Air Force? Be like OTS officer or?
Okay, so I would really, right now, what I'm looking at is either intel or logistics, preferably logistics because I'm a very big planner. I like to plan and have everything organized, and that's kind of the person I am. If eventually if I decide to, it's a possibility. I'm not committed to this yet, but I'd go to law school and become a lawyer in the Air Force because I actually worked at a legal office for about 4 months before I graduated high school. I interned and helped with quite a few cases there on the Kadena Law Center. And so I would really like to be a logistics officer just because, I mean, it's kind of cool, and especially for whatever section you go into. Like if you go into like ammunition logistics and stuff like that, you get to learn about all of the like weapons or planes or whatever, and you get to be able to say what goes where. It's an important job because it like for any scenario, like you need to know what is where and everything and what needs what and all that. But I think that I definitely feel like I would make a difference, but I'd also do something that I loved at the same time.
Awesome. So if you guys are have no more questions for Hannah, thank you so much, Hannah, for taking some time with us today and telling us your story. I know that they were all very interested to hear it, and I appreciate you taking their time. We are going to, I want y'all to hang back real quick and kind of chat with me about the rest of the year. But Hannah, if you are ready, you can head out. And thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Of course. I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Hannah.